Welcome to the Justin Hamilton podcast. On today's episode, Wil Anderson is back for our 8 a.m. catch up. Will is over performing at the Perth Fringe at the moment. After we somehow messed up the difference in time, which was entirely on me. I've only lived in Australia for 53 years and completely forgot the time difference between Sydney and Perth. But there you go. There's a lot on my mind at the moment. But we got there and we've recorded this. And as always, an interesting and fun catch up with William. Uh, just a few quick things before we bring Will in. Thanks to everyone who signed up for the newsletter. There were heaps of you, and I really appreciate that. And what we'll be doing is that'll probably be the best place to keep up with everything that I'm doing. And also, there'll be some little bonus things with the newsletter as well, recommendations, things I've been experiencing, stuff that I think that you might like. It'll only be coming out bi-weekly. I don't want to be taking up too much of your time. But if you would like to do that and be a part of our really suddenly burgeoning newsletter gang. I don't know what you'd call us, like a group. Are we a posse? Is that what we are? I don't know. Anyway, you can do so over at justinhamilton.com.au. A couple of you had some issues with signing up. When you sign up, you'll get an email confirming that you did want to do that. And undoubtedly, that has gone to your spam the first time. So check your spam and you will find it there. And then once you confirm it, then you'll be fine. So, yeah, keep an eye out for that. Over at Substack, there's a new One Foot in the Spotlight memoir. I've just been talking about the very first gig that I performed at back in March of 1994, and about to commence the next chapter as well, which is, I think it was like the third week of ever performing, so third ever gig my partner and I ever did, and it was the night that the news came through that Kurt Cobain had died. So a pretty formative moment for me, and I was given some advice that night, being one of the few acts that was making jokes about it, and yeah, anyway, I'll save it for the next chapter, but it's a really prominent date in my memory of how everything went down. So that'll be coming up soon. And yes, if you prefer more of the audio side of things, Patreon will have all sorts of bonus podcasts. There's some live shows there, and there's a live show up at my YouTube page as well. That's the Little Victory show that I did a few years ago. So if you'd like to watch a little bit of stand-up, you can find that over there. But once again, head to the website, justinhamilton.com.au. You can find how to sign up for the newsletter, and you can find all the links for podcasts, video, written work, and if you want to follow me on the socials, you can find that there as well. I will come back at the end of this to tell you what's coming up next on this podcast. But for now, let's bring in young William Anderson. So how are you going over in Perth? You've been there
Hello,
a week,
yes.
right?
I have. Yeah. So, started the new tour. Interesting, right? Like we've spoken about this a little over, the chats that we've had in this catch-up slot, which caused us a little trouble with timing this morning because we decided we keep the 8 a.m. concept, but we go with 8 a.m. Perth time because I had a
Yeah.
show last night. And so uh, I really did get a message from you at about like 10:15 going, "Are you going to get on the line this morning?" And I was like, "Ah, you know what? I feel like we've had just a little mess up about all those various time zones that they have in Australia."
It is one of the most ridiculous things to try and keep up with. You shouldn't have to have like a star chart behind you to keep up with everybody.
No, so normally, we're at the same levels of freshness. in
Mm,
our morning, but I am a little dustier than you, I think, because it has been one full week of doing shows now, being back doing the show and having that muscle memory of what it takes to like walk out on stage and try to construct, a unique show every single night. And it is something, through the tour of doing it last year, doing so many shows, 78 shows of it, you get pretty match fit.
mm,
Um, but I will say that I had kind of forgotten how physically, not necessarily mentally exhausting, although I have found sometimes in the morning I am not using the words that I want to use in the same
mm.
way as that might worry you if it was your granddad and you're around for Christmas and he started jumbling things up, like a bit of that sort of gear
Yeah.
where I'm clearly just using the absolutely incorrect word, but using it as if it is the correct word, sort of thing. So there is some aspect of how it scrambles your brain, but because I have approached at least this first part of the tour in a new way, so I was so curious about what would be different. I'm coming back to something that when I started here in Perth last year, it was the start of the idea of, could I do this? That was
Hmm.
what was in my mind. As I've said to you, I knew I would learn things from it, but I didn't know exactly what lessons it was that I was going to learn. And I tried to keep that some of that spirit going into this new kind of incarnation of the show. And one of the things that oh man, I don't want to monologue about this. So hang on. Like I'll stop for a second and say that like yes, hi, I'm a bit tired and my brain is buzzing all over the place still,
Yeah.
and I've got a million thoughts about this week and all the things that have happened this week, but I don't need to all say them all in one breath at the start of our conversation. We can have a natural conversation and I can just sit back and relax a little bit.
Oh no, it's look. To be honest, I think it's a good thing.
Yeah.
I've had a topsy-turvy week. I've had
Okay.
a
You
real
tell me
up and down.
you give me some of your ups and downs first, and then we can get back to my bullshit.
I'll give you the downs. There's a couple of good ups, but the downs were uh, for the first time in a long time, and I can't really remember the last time I felt like this, but it felt with everything that's going on in the world, it was a little bit like, oh, everything's awful, and I don't know where I want to be.
Uh,
You
as
know,
in where physically you want to be?
physically and mentally,
Uh-huh.
it's ranging from, I guess, the absolute obvious things like, people just being murdered in the streets in America and, just all of that kind of stuff that we don't
Mhm.
really need to touch on. Everyone's across it. But then there's also just seeing the way, I guess, the arts are being defunded, and just the overall dumbing down of intellectual discourse when it comes to the arts, and the way people sort of approach things. And it did, for the first time, feel a little bit like, where do you go from here? Like, because once things change, they don't go back to how they were before. They might get better, but they are irrevocably changed. And it was the first time that I felt a little bit like I lost the energy to keep moving forward for a few
Mm.
days.
Yeah. Okay. Why do you think that I don't know. So I think about this a bit, which is,
Mm,
you know, I worry that perhaps we pay too much attention because in times when my attention is ripped away for other reasons from what is going on in the world. And this is not to say that you should not engage or have some context for the world in which you live and the issues, but often we get so wide in our view, that we look so globally or that we look so internationally, and the things that we are seeing are so far beyond our control that we feel like, well, we can't control any aspect of it. Whereas
mm,
if we narrow our focus a little and see that there are, so in Perth this week, there was a terrorist. event.
Yeah.
Did you know that?
Yeah.
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 Okay.
Not really as broadly reported as you would think.
No. This is the difference between how we see the world as being so binary, and yet so often how our view of it, something it can be just predicated on such a small moment.
Mm.
So on Monday, on the January 26th, as part of the counter invasion day protests for January 26th, there was a uh, somebody threw a bomb that the police described it like it would have been a mass casualty event. It was like
Mm.
a pipe and like a nail and whatever screw, like a homemade, an improvised, like explosive device, but like one
Mm.
that would have, if it had been lit,
Yeah.
caused a mass casual probably caused a mass casualty event, right?
Yeah.
And so the only difference between the fact that on a few days ago in the middle of Perth, like hundreds of people did not get killed in a terrorism event, was that the it didn't light.
Yeah.
That's it. That's
That's
the
it.
only difference.
Yeah.
Like from that balcony where he threw it down into that group of people, the only difference between that being a thing that a bunch of people in the eastern states didn't even hear about happened this week, and it being, another Bondi or whatever, not
Mm.
to like, but my point being that it can be that idea of such a small moment in between those two things. And
Mm.
so I was really close to that. I think you'll you'll enjoy that when sometimes you are just so I am staying in the in a like a service department chain
Hmm.
that um used to be good. I've been staying in this particular chain for 25 years,
Yeah.
and they have we've been in a relationship with each other, but because I'm away a lot, I'm not seeing them all the time. I didn't
Yeah.
know that they'd let themselves go, baby.
Yeah.
And I still love them. I still remember the good times that we used to have together. And I didn't
Yeah.
realize that things aren't like that anymore. And so, and it's, it's weird when like everyone like who did comedy used to stay in this one place. And now I think I'm the only person who's left staying in this one place.
You're a loyal guy. What can I say?
I am a loyal guy and I get in my habits, and I like where I know where something is and where things are in relation to it and all those sort of things.
Mm.
And so, but I'm staying here for 3 weeks, and so some of the flaws are more evident in a longer stay. And one of them was that when I was checking in, their first question was, "What day of the week would you like your apartment serviced?" I mean, that
Right.
used to be a daily thing, and
Yeah.
now it is now the good news is, Justin, you get to choose your own day of the week that they're going to
Well, I guess that's
come.
progress. You know when to be out.
Again, this is not the biggest issue in the entire world, um, but in the freezer, if you wanted an ice cube in your drink, just say like on a hot Perth day, say it's
Mm.
38, 39 degrees like it has been the last couple of days, and you thought, you know what might be nice in my drink? Just
Mm.
maybe some ice.
Mm.
Well, I can't really complain because they have provided the tray that the ice cubes go in, but
Great.
just not any of those individual cubed ones. So if
Oh,
you want ice, you could
it's
just get one Cadbury Dairy Milk bar slab of ice and then crush it into your own drink. So
yeah,
it's,
gonna have to get yourself a little ice pick.
but the other day, this was both the elevators, only two elevators, and both of them were broken. And
Right.
I needed to get up to the room because, I had to get to my show.
Yeah.
And they said, "Oh yeah, yeah, no, there's stairs, but they need to be unlocked with a key." And so then they had to go and find the keys, and it took ages for them to find the keys. And then they found the right person to open the stairwell with the keys. And by this stage, a whole bunch of people had been like, "Oh, we also need to go up or down in these elevators because this is a hotel." And
Yeah.
so they find these keys. We all traipse up the stairs. We get to the third floor. They can't open. The keys won't open the door to the third floor, which is the floor that I'm on. So anyway, our workaround is that we go up to the fourth floor, and there's another way you can get down to the third floor from the fourth floor, but you just have to go up to the fourth floor and then back down to the third floor.
Yeah. That's good for
Anyway,
that's good for your hips.
well, it's great for my hips, but it's also even better in the case of a fire.
Oh,
I
yeah,
can't
great.
I can't wait for those
Yeah.
10 minutes when they're finding the keys and I'm going up to the seventh floor to jump off the balcony because it's the only way out of the building. So anyway, I'm staying here for another 2 weeks and I couldn't be bothered moving my hotel. So anyway, so
So no
I,
fires, please.
no fires, please. But the biggest thing of all is that the bed is two single beds pushed together rather than it
Oh,
being a.
right.
And you mentioned the hips. I just can't. I just can't do that. So I decide to do what I often do in this situation, particularly if there's 3 weeks. Best $119 you'll ever spend in your entire life. Go to like a Kmart or a Target or whatever and buy yourself like a nice mattress topper protector, like a
Oh,
proper
yeah.
one, like,
Yep.
and you just whack it on your bed. $5 a day basically is what you're
Yeah.
spending, and you will have a beautiful, comfortable night's sleep. Now, those things will like they won't work forever, but good news, you're leaving it there as a gift to the hotel on the
Yeah.
way out. You're like, don't say I don't ever get you something, baby. Here
Yeah.
it is.
Just
The
trying to
next
help you
people who
out.
the next people who sleep, if you can just get another 600 people like me, this
Yeah.
hotel will be good to sleep in again. So,
Yeah. Ah,
so, so on Monday, when this like almost terrorist event is happening, and luckily no casualties, which is the good news about what happened. But I was 1 block away, literally 1 block
oh,
away from it
right.
when it happened,
Yeah.
because I had decided to get out of the way of, you're in a foreign city and it's like a day that it can be as heightened as Jan 26 can be for all sorts of reasons that
Hmm.
um, I just thought, you know what, get out of that energy. Like, so I went to see Hamnet. Have you seen Hamnet?
I have seen Hamnet.
What did you think of Hamnet?
I thought it was pretty good.
Yeah. I
I
reckon
can't,
yeah, it's
yeah,
pretty good. The
it's
performances are fantastic.
fantastic. It emotionally, weirdly, it emotionally peaks for me in the middle of the film
Yeah.
when, spoilers for anyone who is thinking of seeing it, but when she gives birth to the twins and she
Yeah.
saves the second one, I like that to me is the emotional high point. But the ending where it uses that very specific Max Richter music, which is technically perfect for that final scene, has been used so often that as soon as that music started to play, I immediately sat there and went, fuck, I love the movie Arrival. And I was suddenly thinking about Arrival, you know? And it's just it's just a really jarring choice to kind of take you out of a film. And there is a little part of me that when you kind of get to that ending, it's it's good, but there's something just it's just a little bit over the top for me. Do you know what I mean? Like it just crests a bit too far, and I think there could have been just something a notch below that would have been a little bit more subtle. That just would have been twice as devastating.
Yeah, I couldn't quite tell what the point of the movie was.
Hmm. Yeah.
I, because I'm interested in like, I mean, obviously I'm interested in Shakespeare and like,
Hmm.
I thought, yeah, as I said, the acting I thought was actually fantastic. Like all
Yeah.
the performances were really brilliant, and the kids like in some roles that like are pivotal to
Hmm.
this movie, like one in particular, like a Hamnet needs
Hmm.
to be like so much of the emotional, kind of baggage of the story relies on you having some sort of affection for this kid, and I think it's
Hmm.
all in the performance. Like
Yeah.
they found but yeah, there was something about it that I left the cinema just feeling a bit like, yeah, yeah, that was all right, I suppose.
Yeah.
Here's what
It's
I will say about it is it is not a good movie to because I thought this is the yeah we thought let's go in the platinum, it's a hot day, air conditioned, sit in a big comfortable seat, maybe order some food to come in, halfway through. Yeah, not a nachos movie.
no.
Not much. It's very spare soundtrack. There's
Yeah.
no explosions, no
Yep.
time to crunch on a corn chip.
Not
Like
really.
Because at one stage I was like, get the plague or something so you can just cough loudly so I can have more than one nacho at a time.
It's so funny that you say that because I was absolutely cognizant of how loudly I was swallowing
Mm.
while I was drinking water while watching that film. I was like, am I borderline gargling? Like I sound so loud, but that's how quiet it
Yeah,
is.
I really do feel like it should be the responsibility of the cinemas that if you are going to see like a gold class experience or a platinum or whatever,
Mm.
they should not just have like the movie ratings, but they should have the eating ratings.
Yes,
You know,
I
like
like that.
Fast and Furious,
All the
knock yourself out.
all the
Popcorn,
Doritos. Yeah,
yeah, Doritos,
yeah,
eat an apple. We don't care.
yeah,
Like as loud as you want in this
yeah,
movie. But I got to be honest with you, if you are going to see Hamnet, we've got some rice, we've got
yeah,
some sago pudding,
yeah.
we've got some mashed potatoes.
Yeah, yeah. Look, we got some Ferrero Rocher. You can just gently crunch into them and no one will hear. Yeah, I totally get that.
So
Interesting.
I go out of this movie. This is what I wanted to tell you. Sorry. I go out of this movie to go and get a mattress protector. Uh, and I walk unbeknownst, because at the time they were just dispersing the crowds. They didn't really know what had happened yet, and they weren't telling anyone, which was fair enough. Like it
Hmm.
was an unexploded device, so there's no need, I imagine, to yell bomb and get people really panicky
Yeah,
at that point.
yeah.
They are absolutely dispersing people in a rapid manner. But I just assume, oblivious to everything, that it is part of, they're just dispersing people for the various rallies and stuff that have been
Hmm.
going on. I don't imagine in a million years that it's going to be a bomb thing. So just like la da 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 da, walk into the Kmart, get a mattress protector, wander through everything. Not no, it wasn't until I got back to the hotel that I even realized shit had been going down.
Mate,
I was like, oh my God, I was in the middle of that. I was
you,
one block away.
yeah, you're
That was the
like,
loud explosion I needed to eat those nachos.
yeah. You're like Sean at the start of Shaun of the Dead, slipping in the blood,
Oh,
going to buy your cornetto and not really clocking that there's a zombie apocalypse happening
I
around
mean,
you.
that was it. I was absolutely doing a Shaun from the opening scenes of Shaun of the Dead.
Oh man.
So,
Um,
well, the question was, I guess that was a long-winded uh, sidetrack, but the point being is, I wonder if sometimes we look so much. Yeah, it's been nice to kind of be in a community where something happened in a way or didn't happen.
mm,
The in a way the best of the circumstances, which is that you get to have the hypothetical conversation around it all without any of the disastrous consequences of,
mm,
it actually being a terrible thing. But it narrows your focus a little, and because I've been doing shows and I've been concentrating on some stuff going on locally, I've paid less attention to.
mm,
No, I mean, obviously aware of what's been happening in America and etc. But by taking your eye off the ball a little about those things and narrowing it a little, like bringing your focus in a little to what is in your field of vision or what you
yes.
can control, can be, I don't know if it's like necessarily more healthy, but I do think the wider we go, the further we are away from being able to have any discernible impact on the thing that we are worrying about, the harder and more overwhelming it is. Whereas if you can kind of see it and see that there is some sort of like solution to the thing that's in front of you, it does that make any sense?
Yeah,
What I'm
yeah.
trying to say?
Well, so what's really interesting about that is the thing that actually sent me sideways was on Australia Day. I went to get middle of the afternoon. I just went to get a coffee in Surrey Hills, and on the street were uh, classic nuclear families, husband, wife, kids, all dressed up in Australian flags, like capes and waving them around. And there were also the cliche of the young men with the beards and the trucker hats in skinny jeans with uh, Southern Cross flags sitting there, just kind of hanging out and eating. And there was a kind of a bit of a rough vibe in Surrey Hills. And I think because I agree with what you were saying about that approach, because I think you do need to do that. You have to get the balance right of engaging and not driving yourself crazy. But I wasn't expecting it in Surrey Hills. I don't know why. Probably just being a little bit naive, probably just not, just going about my day, not really thinking about it. And it was actually that kind of sent me down
Uh,
a slippery slope because it was like I think if I'd even left the house going, far out, I hope I don't see any arseholes wearing flags, like I would have been prepared for it, but it was like
yeah.
I wasn't inoculated. And I was
I think
talking,
I part of that is honestly, I think post voice referendum, not
mm,
just, I don't think the two are all completely connected with each other, but
mm,
that was part of why I went to the movies on Monday,
mm,
was I was worried that a few years ago, it felt like there was so much momentum towards changing the date, and that people understood why that might be an important thing to do. And,
mm,
whether there was debate about when it would be and how we would do that, etc. But it was more that we were moving in the direction. I think the polls got as high as, nearly 40% of Australians, like I think at one stage were in favor of changing the date, which was way up from what it had been
mm,
historically, and like moving in a direction where it felt like that was an inevitable thing that was going to happen.
mm,
And so it surprised me that it's gone back in the opposite direction. And even in the surveys around, like, it's way back down in the 20s or something again now,
mm,
like, which was a shock to me to hear that. But I've seen it in the streets, and you've seen it in the way that people have, um, you know, like have gone back in the opposite direction. And I think some of it is linked to the voice referendum. And I do think
mm,
that my fears around, because I don't support us celebrating it on the day. Yeah, I think people are pretty aware that like that's my opinion, and
mm,
I'm not gonna, like, I have written comedy about it, and I think, to be honest, for the first time in ages, this thing that happened, like, being so near this thing, but in a way that I could make it comical, and because nothing happened in
mm,
the end, that I could write something about that idea of how close it was. That would be an interesting point in that bit. Like if I was thinking about what would be a nice bit of material for me to write about this thing on Monday, I think there would be like those elements where you could go, I could like paint the picture of being in the movies and trying to eat my nachos really quiet and
mm,
make that a bit comical. I could tell the story of like needing this mattress protector, staying in this hotel. It could be like a big story about this like week and blah blah blah.
mm,
But with the kind of punchline being this naive guy in the middle of this thing, but enable me to talk about all those things about the rallies, because it was at an Invasion Day counter protest, to the Australia Day thing. The fact that it was like, so it could have been, we don't know yet. You can't speculate on these things, but absolutely could be like, motivated for a bunch of like, interest reasons that are interesting to discuss and talk about. And it was the first time in ages where I was like, oh yeah, I can feel like my passion to talk about this in a way, because the circumstance would enable you to talk about all the unique elements of it. I never thought I would be talking about, I did a big routine about it years ago that gets published every, like, January 26th. It kind of is one of those ones that just pops up again and people share
mm,
around. And I really felt like that was my final thoughts on the subject, just because, much like I don't have a routine about marriage equality anymore because we have marriage equality, I had
yeah,
just assumed that we were on the way to changing the date, and we were just now arguing about when and where we'd actually do that. But I'm not even sure that is the direction we're moving in anymore. And I feel like an absolute outlier as
mm,
someone who, you suddenly you're like, oh, do we have to re-engage in this? Feels like maybe we have to re-engage in this, as like, because I do think it isn't a shock to walk out in Surrey Hills and see people,
mm.
celebrating the day.
Yeah, yeah. There is a just an air of selfishness and a lack of empathy, which it's not even just a lack of empathy. It almost feels there is a very casual use of cruelty as well, and it really was a few days of feeling deflated. You don't want to put the wrong words on it and make it something bigger than it was, but it
Uh,
did feel just a little bit like, oh God, this is a. I don't know where the momentum's gone, and even if I had it at this point, I don't even really know where I would want it to lead me.
okay, so that's really interesting because it's so often different how you're perceiving your own life to how you're externally being perceived. And who knows what
Mm,
the right amount of one or the other is. It's probably
Hmm.
very situationally dependent, and but unfortunately, that's not how we view it or have been taught to view it. But I was just having a conversation this week with somebody about how much momentum it seemed that you had at the moment.
Oh, look, like once again, this is uh, so I feel like I've overcome it.
Yeah.
Like I honestly feel like I overcame that feeling. Look, I'll tell you something that it's so pathetic, but it really made my week. Was I was performing at the new Newcastle Comedy Club
Oh,
that
yeah.
they've set up, and I was talking to a chippy in the front row, Roy, and he was great, and he was there with his twin and his girl, his partner, and all that, and blah blah blah. And then I was about to talk about my age, and I said to him, "How old do you think I am?" And he looked up at me and he went, "Ah." Oh. And yeah, I thought, he doesn't want to insult me. And he just went, pushing 40. And
Oh, oh.
it was very hard not to nearly burst into tears and just walk off. And I was the MC. I thought, well, this gig's clocked itself. I'm going.
I mean, I gotta say, you got a sharp new haircut at the moment,
Uh,
and you are looking pretty good. I can see that. You've got good skin too. You've always had good skin.
don't like the beach, mate.
Yeah, exactly. That's right. That's really paying off now, isn't
That's
it?
that's what I said to that woman who asked me if I use Botox. I said, no, no, I've got a receding hairline and I don't like the beach, so I don't have any sun damage.
Yeah, your hatred of like swimming in the ocean has protected you from sharks and melanoma.
Yeah,
It's worked out well.
yeah. So yeah, it was just such a small thing, but it just gives you a little. Oh, that's brought me back from the edge. The other thing, I saw Nick Cave. I know how you feel about seeing him live. I like to go every, couple of tours, and
Yeah, I would have gone to this particular tour. It was playing in the that he was playing the Sydney Myer Music Bowl in Melbourne, which is
yeah,
not is walking distance from where I live, but unfortunately I'm on the other side of the country.
yeah, so frustrating.
Yeah,
And like I'm not religious at all, but I do. Going and seeing him perform is like going
yeah.
visiting a beautiful church, and you can
Well, it's yeah,
enjoy the
he's got that old
spiritualism.
school like what do you call it? Like the Southern like Baptist style
Yeah,
preachery like
yeah,
but very much that there will be blood style of like,
yes,
dark undercurrent of
yeah,
like, yeah, it's something. Like
yes,
whatever it is, it's something. I remember talking to James Freud from the Models, was that their
yeah.
band? And
I hear
he was
emotion.
he was telling me that one time when they were all first starting out, one night the Models were playing a gig and Nick Cave and I don't know if it was the Bad Seeds or where it would have been his previous, like it would have, I don't know what era we're talking
Yeah,
about here, but it was in the early days, so it might have been pre-Bad Seeds, and um, that they would come and they would hurl shit at the Models. They would stand in the audience and they would hurl like dog shit and human shit at the Models in the gig. And James Freud just said to me, he goes, but all I could ever think was they're putting their hands in the shit.
yeah. Yeah, you might be getting hit now and again, but they are definitely holding all of it. Oh man, that's so funny. When you hear something described as punk now, and you go, no, no,
Nah,
that was
seems
punk.
unhygienic, doesn't it?
It seems really unhygienic. But yeah, it was it's that he did just under 3 hours, and it's you see Warren Ellis and you go,
Yeah,
man, he nailed life because he's gotten to be Warren Ellis his
yeah,
whole life. Like, I think that's almost like if you can be whoever you want to be to the 100%. It's like you've really nailed it. But also, it was like it's interesting because you get a little taste of Radiohead. You get Colin Greenwood in the band
mm,
as well, and it is kind of a spiritual experience, and it's mostly the new album for a long time and newer songs, and then when he starts ripping out the big ones, they hit so hard. You do feel you feel intellectually and emotionally satisfied.
I, and this is not to dismiss this artist in any way, but last night after my show, I decided to go for a walk, and Ed Sheeran
Oh,
uh,
yeah,
was playing in Perth last night, the last
yeah,
2 nights at Optus Stadium, which I haven't been to before, the big stadium they have in Perth. And
mm,
so he played the Saturday night show, and look, the show got a okay review in the paper. It's yeah, it's the start of the tour, and they were just like, he's an incredibly talented artist, but. It's him and a foot pedal and like a loop pedal, and is it enough for a 55,000
mm,
show? Anyway, I thought, you know what, I'll go and have a wander. I haven't walked over the bridge and gone to the this will be good. This will be my walk tonight.
mm,
And of course, as I was going closer and closer, I was like, you know what, fuck it. Like, what? I've never seen Ed Sheeran. Let's see if there's any tickets available. I'll just see. I'll just go online on my walk. I'm walking in that direction anyway. I'll
mm,
just go. If there's a ticket available, I'll buy a ticket and I'll just go and see it. That'll be like a fun thing to do. I don't have to stay for the whole thing. I heard he plays nearly 3 hours, and I was like, I probably won't. I won't make 3 hours, but like
mm,
maybe I could like watch an hour and a half and
mm,
like just kind of see what it's like, and see
mm.
Perth Stadium and whatever. So anyway, that's exactly what happened.
Oh,
And
right.
I made it about, I reckon, 80 minutes. 80
Yeah,
minutes was like enough for me to go, this is great. And if you're an Ed Sheeran fan, I bet this is like great because he's just 100% Ed Sheeran. Like,
yeah,
tells stories in between the songs, then loops the thing on his foot pedal and like sings one of his songs. And the only problem was I just didn't know enough of the songs for that to be, after a while, you just got to know the songs to be enjoying yourself because there's
yeah,
not heaps of other stuff going on, like
yeah.
And so after 80 minutes, I was like, look, he's played. I knew two songs solidly coming into this. He's played one of them, and I bet he's closing with the other one. And I'm not waiting another hour and a half to hear
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
And so, but the nice thing was I wandered back, and you could hear it for ages. So I kind of felt like I got to hear about the next 40 minutes just by
Oh, yeah,
just
great.
just walking away as well. I was like, oh, this is the right amount of Ed Sheeran for me. Thank you. Like,
Yeah.
charming, but it's funny. It was one of those things where you're like, at the start, I was like, oh yeah, this is really good. And he does Castle on the Hill quite early. And I'm like, okay, great. This is actually, you
Mm,
know what? Maybe I will stay for the 3 hours. Maybe I'll
mm.
be an Ed Sheeran fan. And then like, I reckon about 45 minutes in was the first time I was like, I'm going to go and get an ice cream.
That's the first sign. Oh, well, I'm quite clearly not going to be sticking around to the end.
But it was actually kind of fun to
Yeah,
just to do it, to um, go and see. I've been trying to go and see things that aren't necessarily something that and even on this trip, got out and about. Oh, can I ask you about this movie and to
mm,
see if you've seen it?
mm.
Have you seen Blue Moon? So I
I
went
have
to
not
the
seen it yet. No, it's my. I'm super keen to see it. It's my next one.
So we went to the Luna Outdoor Cinema, which is
Yeah,
in Perth, in Leederville in Perth, and it's like so. Blue Moon is a Richard Linklater film that
yeah.
stars Ethan Hawke, and it's an old school. It's about it's a fictional, like a fictionalized account. It's one night. It's in real time. Like it is one. It's so good.
Mm,
It's one night. So and none of this is like anything that spoils anything if people want to see it. But the plot of it is that before Rodgers and Hammerstein, Rodgers used to write very successfully thousands of songs, many of which that you would know, including Blue Moon, with this guy Hart. And it is the story of the just before the opening of Oklahoma, which is going to mean that we all know what happens with Rodgers and Hammerstein after that. Like,
mm.
and this guy and his life, and I won't tell anything more than that because anything more than that would be but Ethan Hawke's performance in this thing is fucking unreal. It is
Yeah,
one of those things that like in the classic way of like, when you watch a performance of something where at the start you're like, oh, is this going to be too much for me? And
yeah,
like, but then you just, because someone's making a choice and then you just get into it and you're like, oh, this is,
yeah.
wow, what a treat to spend time with this person and what a performance. Like, It is, and like Richard Linklater continues to be, to me, one of the more interesting filmmakers there is because he keeps making just really good things, but they're all kind of the same but like completely different.
Oh yeah, like
Like they
if
always deal with like kind of similar themes, or like I'm going to make a choice in a style and commit to it. Like, this is nothing like Boyhood, except it reminded me of Boyhood because
yeah,
they're still about doing something that is different to what other people are doing with the form as well as the storytelling. And
yeah,
yeah, I mean, it's just anyway, it was great. And if you want to watch it in an outdoor cinema, there's only going to be three other people there, so you can
yeah,
have a
great.
real
You can really
quiet
spread
private
out.
experience.
Yeah. Well, if Blockbusters were still around, you'd have to have a Linklater section because otherwise his movies would be scattered around all the different genres, and then
Right.
you wouldn't find anything. And he's
You just
uh,
put him in the bit that was like good movies,
good movies. Yeah.
reliably good
Yeah,
movies.
exactly. It's interesting uh all the movies that I've seen that are brilliant, like, and I mean some real brilliant films, have all been outside of the Hollywood system. The Secret Agent, which is a Brazilian film set in the 70s, following a guy who's under, is kind of being uh, chased and under suspicion, and he has to kind of get his son and get out of
And
the
and
city.
is that good? You like
I
that?
loved it, and
They're
it's
playing that at the cinema that I went and watched the movie the other day. There was a poster for that, so maybe
oh
I'll go and
yeah,
see that.
2 hours 40 minutes. Like, make
Okay.
sure you go and can put your feet up. But it's
Yeah.
and there's a moment that is so surreal in the middle of it that
How
while I
many
w
opportunities for me to eat nachos will there be?
like, there'll be a couple.
It's soft foods? Soft foods only,
Maybe,
is this
maybe
what
I'd lean towards the soft foods and keep the
okay.
nachos there for certain points. But that was
Just coming in with some white bread. Just a
yeah.
loaf of white bread.
I've heard this is a soft film. The It Was Just an Accident, the Iranian film
Uh,
made by Jafar Pahini, about a man who thinks he's found his torturer and kidnaps him,
oh,
and then starts to wonder if he's got the right guy. Uh, Really funny. Like,
yeah, okay.
it's funny. It's political. There's just so much going on. And then Park Chan-wook's latest film, No Other Choice, about a man who loses his job and goes for another job and realizes the best chance of him getting it is killing the three guys who are better suited for the job. And it's this dark satire, and it's like all of them are brilliant. And then
Yeah.
and then something
This is
like,
full circle though to me, which is, do we think that in these times of everything going in one direction, what inevitably happens is that the balance restores? Like it creates an opportunity for the grass to grow between the cracks in the concrete. That like when everything is going in the Marvel direction or the AI direction or the like everything has to be this one specific thing, like that then suddenly people crave these other things or these other projects start to
mm,
find their own spaces again.
you hope so. And it's the 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 problem is capitalism, and these movies getting funding, you know. Like, the latest
Yeah.
28 Years Later movie is a rock solid masterpiece with so many interesting themes and discussion points. And it's done really poorly at the
Oh,
cinema.
really?
It's done really poorly. And also just even hearing, a couple of American podcasts that I actually quite like. And I was like, oh, they're really going to be able to discuss a lot with this film. And at one point, for about 80 seconds, they just talked about how gnarly the film was. And they honestly used the word gnarly about three or four times. And it's like, this is a really interesting film that's discussing what happens when you have an imbalance between faith and science, and if you lean one way or another way. And it's set against the backdrop of this zombie genre. And you're just saying it's gnarly?
Yeah.
I'm like, like, you're not helping. You should be uh these things need to be sold properly, and these things, people need to be
Well,
encouraged to see things that are intellectually stimulating.
this is what I would say about uh, Blue Moon, because Blue Moon is this, again, in essence, it's the hour before everybody arrives in this bar to celebrate what we all know is going to be the inevitable success of Oklahoma and
Mm,
the character that is the central force. And I mean, like, oh, it's almost like a one-man show, like, in the way that it is presented. Like everybody else is absolutely just a character to play off like Ethan Hawke's performance.
mm,
But the show is about so much.
mm,
Like it is about the idea of like having once been something, how you squander something, like friendships, like partnerships, someone whose ego gets in the own way of thing, a particular time in America where culture was shifting from being something that was satirical and dark to it was the war and everything had to be rah, rah, rah
mm,
America. And like all these themes, like all of them and more are in this like 2 hours you spend on just this one story in real time. And that's what I
mm,
loved about it the most was I was like, this is so rich
mm,
and has been so well written that I mean the guy like wrote it. It's like I don't know anything about him, but it is so well thought out. There is
mm,
layers of like detail and it is so rich and I don't know who put all that in there, but the story is like so layered and about the world and it was so satisfying to me to see
mm.
something that would never told you that it was about any of those things and was quite clearly about all of them.
Yeah, yeah. Well, Ethan Hawke is a real kind of Renaissance guy, and it feels, I've seen, I love the choices he makes with the stuff that the projects that he engages with, and I love him in interviews. I think uh, he's engaged and articulate, and he has interesting views and positive views on even the darker side of things that occur.
It's
Uh,
like
I,
he turned into the good version of his character from Reality Bites,
well, it's
as opposed to the terrible version that we imagine that character actually really turned into.
well, it's funny, you see some people kind of point out, oh, well, he was like this, he did this, his marriage to Uma Thurman didn't work out because he did
Uh,
this and all that. And it's like, yeah, guess what he did?
yeah.
He grew up. And this is who he is now. And he wouldn't be this person now if he hadn't at some point been a bit of a fuckhead and at some point made some mistakes. And
Well, if you've
he's
been
bloomed into this
I mean,
person.
we'd all prefer to have not been fuckheads in the first
Yeah,
place.
yes.
But unfortunately, being alive just really presents you so many opportunities to have been a fuckhead.
Oh
And
my God.
sometimes
Yes.
you are absolutely not aware at the time that you are being a fuckhead.
No.
Sometimes you are. Let's be honest. You've got to like,
Sometimes.
you've got to
Sometimes you
like,
lean into it.
yeah, that's right. Sometimes you enjoy being a fuckhead and you've got to accept that. And you can't pretend that
Yeah.
wasn't the case.
Yeah.
But if you continue to be a fuckhead forever, like
Yeah.
I think people in general, there's a good level of like being that way that we should forgive as long as somebody makes genuine attempts, or not even forgive, but understand
Yeah.
if someone makes genuine attempts to be better, because what's the other option? They just continue to make terrible decisions or, whatever else it might be. No, good. Oh, you
Mm.
grew up, you matured. Well, that's
Yeah.
good. Like, well done.
And also there's, progress should be applauded and to kind of pinpoint mistakes people made at a specific age and to, use that to kind of almost wipe out everything that they've done since
Also,
is,
progress is only measured by context. And
yes.
so depending on where you are, the different behaviors are going to be celebrated by the group in which you are. So the idea that there is like this universal context in which, oh, so and so behaved in this way that you will make a judgment about
Mm,
without any of the context of, how those behaviors manifested themselves. Like, I mean, that's what we're doing all the time, of course. We're all making
mm,
these judgments and blah, blah, blah. But like, I love, like, if you're going to get your shit together and like, you know, I mean that should be encouraged generally in all of us, you
yeah.
know.
Yeah. It should be celebrated. And and
Well,
when you
even Natasha Lyonne like publicly kind of revealed that like her sobriety had, she whatever, however she described it was like she had a break from her sobriety or whatever it was, and somebody had, sort of said, well, look, you did 10 years.
Mm,
Don't remember that. Don't forget just because you had a blip that
mm,
like the person who did the 10 years is you too. Like
mm.
don't think
Yeah,
that this person who made this one mistake has to be all you are.
yeah,
Like because the person who did the 10 years of clean living and like had, overcome their like battles with addiction, that was also that same person. And I think there are parallels to that in the way that we often like patterns of bad behavior absolutely are things that we can recognize and go, well, this is a pattern. It needs to be stopped.
yeah,
One-off instances of people making mistakes are things that I think, need to examine more closely,
yeah.
and just go, well, why? Why was this mistake made? What were the circumstances? What else might have contributed to it? They're not like this usually. So in
Mm,
this
yeah.
circumstance where they have behaved in a way that they are not usually like,
Mm.
maybe there was something else that was going on that day or whatever.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Sometimes we come down with a level of ferocity on someone who's made one mistake, you know, to such an extent that the people who keep making the mistakes are just, yeah, 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 yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah. Well, I'm used to that with them. But you,
Yeah, it is true, isn't it? We often prosecute those who've made one mistake
Hmm,
or like, that is abnormal to the way that we normally perceive them much more than we do to a person who is like that all the time.
yeah,
Yeah, that's interesting.
yeah,
I guess we just hold those people to higher standards, but yes. Hmm.
yeah.
Hmm.
And some of those people who keep making the same mistakes flourish.
Oh, yes, absolutely.
Yeah,
Yes. All right. Okay. Can I talk to you about my show? I think I've held off long enough
you've done
talking. Is
really,
it okay?
mate. 47 minutes. You've done well.
So I um, have
Sorry,
just,
can I just
yeah,
ask quickly, how long's it been between the last one and your first one back?
I think 3 months,
Yeah, right. So, that's substantial.
2 or 3 months. Yeah. Like, I mean, a really decent amount of time. And the last few that I did, I think I mentioned this when we were chatting, which was that just at the back end of last year in the last few shows, I started to, instead of asking people about their jobs and stuff like that, just started
Mm,
asking them, is there anything, like, just tell me anything that you'd happy to tell me.
mm,
But this is the first tour, like the first week where that has been the only question that I'm like, well, not the only question, there's follow-up questions and all, but that
mm.
is my starting question. Even to the point where last night I set up the front. So coming into this new part of like doing this second half of the tour, let's say, but starting afresh,
Mm,
I wondered what's going to be different this year? Like, how is it going to be a different experience? What will I contribute to that? What can I
mm.
do? What are my aims and aspirations around that? And one of them was how much of I know I need a little explanation at the start, but how much do I need?
Yep.
I feel like by the end of last tour, there was so much like, I probably had like 10 minutes and I could have, if I wanted to do 15 minutes of kind of introductions and explanations of the show, but it kind of almost became, even though it was never written down, it became almost like a little bit of stand up at the start. And I didn't
Yeah.
know if that was really, it was helpful for me to find my feet and whatever, but it wasn't what the show was originally like. It
Mm,
had developed into that.
mm.
And I worried that it was fine for the shows where I could do 75, 80, 90 minutes or whatever. But now that I'm back on a 60, 65-minute schedule, I
Mm.
really wanted to get to the improvising as quickly as possible in the
It,
show with, yeah.
it's interesting, isn't it, that the patterns of stand-up and creation, even in an improvised show, you ended up with a bit.
Yeah, well, it just naturally forms because you're
Yeah,
explaining the same thing every night.
yeah.
And so your comedic brain starts to hang examples on. And then if the example then you add something the next night because you want it to be fresh. And then you have
Mm.
this suddenly this thing that is against the spirit of what it is. It's almost like if you're not flossing, yeah, you're brushing your teeth, but you're not flossing, right? So there's just like little calcium buildups that you're not really aware of that are
Yeah.
like kind of still happening and they're growing and growing, and you just got to floss it out of there. So I, I examined it at the start. I was like, I've got to find some new ways to get into. the show, like to say
Mm.
the like the things that I said last year. But for a bunch of different reasons, I ran out of time to be able to do that. And so instead, I thought, you know what? Maybe I'll just try to introduce the show as quickly as I can, and anything that I want to do up the top will just be a little bit of like, here's what I did today, or
Mm.
whatever just comes out, of my mouth. And that has been the best.
Mm.
Like, but even that over the week, you still find like you start to build up, like, here's a bit of like what I've done this week or whatever it is that still feels a little bit more like material. But um, I really feel like I've been good, like talking to people by 5 minutes into the show, like, which
Yeah.
is
Great.
great. That
Yeah.
that to me feels like I'm still explaining everything that I want to explain, doing a bit of like, here's a unique thought about like me being here in Perth today, something that might have happened or some observation that I might have had. And then I'm already talking to people 5 minutes in. And this new thing of asking people, like, just to share something with me has, I would say, 80% of the time led to much better, richer, more interesting things than I ever would have been able to get out of them in the time that if I'd worked through their job and all these sort of things. It hasn't
Okay.
always.
Yeah.
Like, there was one night where like the first guy told me a shit story, and then the guy told me it was a doctor. He's been a doctor all his life, and I was like, "What's the best bit?" And he goes, "How many dicks I've seen." I was like, "This is not like this has been a real charming show." Like last night, I talked to a 92-year-old who'd like danced on the Berlin Wall when it came down on New Year's
Oh,
Eve. Like,
wow.
I've got some really charming, beautiful, great stories out of this show. But just one night, just everybody I asked, it was like dicks, shit, and I was
Yeah.
like, I've got to go back to watching job. So,
Yeah. It's a little bit like Graham Norton with the big red chair. You need to be
yeah.
able to just eject people if you go, no, this is not working.
But I will say that so the first night, it felt like that classic because you have not done it for a while. There's a little bit of the old way that you used to do it, and a little bit of you haven't done it for a while. It's fresh, it's new.
Mm.
But by that second night, I was like, you know what I love about this show now is that it really is a completely different show every night. And so much of it is just about the audience. Like,
Mm.
so much of the show, I would say probably 85, 90% of it is really just about whatever it is that they have brought to the table or what it is that they want to talk about. And it's just been, yeah, an absolute delight, like to be here and get to do it.
So is the question that you ask, is it
Yeah.
literally what would you like to tell me? Is
Yeah, just
that
tell me I just say, tell me anything that you would like to tell me. I said, I give them like when I'm doing the intro at the start, I will
yeah.
say something along the lines of like, I'm just going to say, you tell me anything that you'd like to tell me. I said, some people like to tell me their job, but you don't have to. You can tell me what you ate for breakfast today. It can be your life motto. I don't care, whatever it is. Like it's your birthday. Tell me something, whatever. Like, I'll just give it something like
Yes.
that. Give a few, kind of plant the idea that it could be. I said, it can be big, small, whatever. It doesn't matter. Like,
Yeah.
that. So basically, my rules of the show are you don't have to be in it. So I explain that still. That's because I think that's the most important one. And then
Yeah.
I explain just like how the interaction's gonna go. And I think they're the two important ones to explain. And
Yeah.
then once that's done, I feel like I can actually just get into it. And yeah, like people have given me like there was a guy the other night who said, I said, "What do you want to tell me?" And he goes, "I am a guy who will try anything once except for food." I'm like, that's perfect, right?
Great.
Like
Great.
what a great way for us
Yeah.
to
So
but even that thing of going, what do you want to tell me? And like a guy who's like 35 going, so I was 20. And I'm like, great,
great.
because I'm
Yeah.
never getting to like your best story that happened when you were 20,
Yeah. Yeah.
and
Yeah.
you can have so much fun with that as well, the fact that we're right into it or whatever it might
Yeah.
be. But my favorite thing about the guy who would try everything, um, except food,
Yeah,
right?
that's a fascinating sentence because my first thought is, what was the bad experience he had with food, right?
Oh, interesting. So that's not even a thing that I considered asking him, and I reckon I talked to him for 10 minutes
Right. Yeah.
because, but I did ask what the food it was that he eats now.
Yeah.
So his name was Rowan. He like he had like darker skin of someone whose family, at least at some stage, was not born in Australia.
Right. Yep.
But I don't know, didn't get into any of that. But I'm just gonna say, just for context of like what Rowan looks like a bit, so you can have a guess at what the one food is. But what I am going to tell you is it has nothing to do with that. If you went
Right.
to anything stereotypical about Rowan
Yeah.
and you got to nominate the one food that Rowan likes to eat, because I said, well, what is the food that you like to eat? What's this base that you're never
Mm.
varying off when you're trying everything else? What was the food that Rowan enjoys eating?
Like, I feel like you're putting me in a situation where I could be
No, don't.
inadvertently.
I would say go as far away from what. So I've given you. So it's counter to like. So don't pick
Oh,
anything
yeah.
that would be on the description that I've just given you.
Yes. Right.
Yeah.
Okay. So, like, is it like broccoli?
No, I think. No. So
Processed?
like not a healthy food and not a traditionally from the subcontinent or anything like that food.
Oh, right. Um, is it like burgers or something like that?
Yeah,
Or,
like burgers, but not
yeah.
quite like. But you're in. Now you're
Y-
getting more in the right zone.
Souvlaki?
No, yeah, more, but like a bit more back towards burgers than souvlaki. Souvlaki's a bit too fancy
Hot
still.
dogs?
Oh, you're so close, but
So
let's
close.
not quite there yet. Pizza.
Pizza, right. Yeah,
Pizza.
yes,
What
yes.
is Rowan's favorite pizza?
Uh, meat lovers?
Hawaiian.
Hawaiian.
I mean
Really?
the room just erupted when we heard that Rowan's been eating Hawaiian pizza for
Hawaiian
20
pizza.
years.
Wow.
So so I proposed to Rowan that he should I said, have you ever been to Hawaii? And he's never been to Hawaii. And I said, Rowan, you should fly to Hawaii and eat a Hawaiian pizza
Mhm.
because that is the ultimate like of your life motto, the way that you've described yourself as a person who likes to try anything once except for food. If you
Yep.
flew to Hawaii, a place you've never been, and ate a Hawaiian pizza in Hawaii, that would be the ultimate
Yep.
thing to do to satisfy those two things. And he was into that idea, Rowan.
Yeah.
And then I was moving on from Rowan. And then his girlfriend or wife, his partner, just goes, by the way, he lied to you. He won't try everything once because earlier I had said, so if like, so say for example, you had a souvlaki, you are more likely to stick that up your bum than you are to stick it down your throat because you're willing to
Right.
try anything once. And she goes, she said he's not willing to do that. I got the impression she was a little disappointed.
Yeah,
So,
right. Yeah. A little cheeky finger. Obviously not on the bingo card.
but yeah, because it takes you to, you know, a 92-year-old dancing on a Berlin Wall as much as it takes
Yeah.
you to a guy who eats pizza all his life. If you just, and sometimes it is just small.
Yeah.
My wife and I, blah, blah, blah. Last night or the other night, there was a girl who was like, when I was 14, you were doing a gig in Bunbury, and afterwards, I stole like your empty Crown Lager, and then the next year I came back and got you to sign. Like, like I
Oh,
mean,
right.
like really quirky things sometimes. There was a guy the other night, the first guy I talked to, he sat down. The woman he was sitting next to was a friend of his from 8 years ago that he hadn't seen since then.
Oh, great.
But I would have never, like, if I ask, what's your job, you don't get to that. But if I
Yes.
ask, tell me something about you, and goes, well, you won't believe this. But when I sat down to, I came here by myself and I'm sitting next to, all right, wow, okay, we're in.
Yeah. And then why hadn't they taught for 8 years?
They went to art school together. So that just
Yeah.
as adults, it was just one of those situational friendships, So
Yeah.
one of those things where their lives had been very different. She was a bit older than him, I think, and,
Yeah.
different life circumstances, but they met in kind of adult art school, had
Yeah.
this like friendship that was like situational to the fact that they were
Yeah.
studying this thing. And then when the study finished and went in
Just in,
separate directions sort of thing. Nothing bad or anything, just like one of those circumstances, but
and
just ended up sitting next to each other at the comedy show.
yeah, and that's a better result for you as well, because if something
Oh
bad
yeah,
had
true.
gone down, suddenly, welcome to my therapy show.
Yeah, well, I would have been getting that vibe from the corner. I mean, last night there was a woman who had lost her sight 4 years ago.
Right.
And, just incredible her telling me the story of like knowing that she had this disease that like was going to take her sight from her eventually and how she'd, prepared her life for that and what they'd done beforehand, knowing it was coming up and etc. And then like on the first night, there was Um, a really brilliant young woman who's 20 years old. She's on dialysis, has been for nearly 2 years,
Mm.
and can't get a new kidney because they don't know yet what made her old one fail. And they won't give her a new one until
Oh,
they
right.
can find out why the old one failed. And so she's had to live this life of being on constant dialysis, but still coming out to like
Whew.
comedy shows at 20 years old and like talk
Yeah.
to her and her mum. And so I hope that people that are happy that that is part of the show as well, that I will take. But it feels like in the room, it feels like people are happy with it, and I'm
Mm.
certainly happy with it. I love the richness of, sometimes it will take you to something that is a bit a lot, but you're like, it feels like because I've said you tell me anything that you're happy to tell me, and I've lowered it doesn't have to be the most interesting thing in the world. It really can be, what did you have for breakfast?
Yeah.
And so if they say I've been on dialysis for 2 years, you kind of feel like, well, this is okay. The audience understand this is permission for us to have this
Yes.
conversation because this person brought it up. I didn't go, hey, you look like you're sick. Like, what's going on here?
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
not.
yeah. Yeah, immediately the audience always just there's that collective intake of breath of I don't know how this is going to go. But yeah, as
Yeah.
you said, everyone's been given permission to share what they want to share.
Yeah.
So it's good. Yeah, it's a level playing field. And all you're doing is uh digging into it and making it entertaining and for everyone.
What I love too, and again, I think I mentioned this to you about when I did Tom Gleason's brother Nick runs these incredible gigs in
Mm.
Orange in the local area, and
Central West
um,
comedy.
one of my great delights of doing those shows was discovering, asking the audience, being able to be curious and say, obviously oranges isn't your big industry here, and everybody laughing and
Mm.
getting to reveal to me in real time that actually apples is the thing that they grow in orange, which
Yeah.
is would have been a funny thing for me to know, but is a much funnier thing for me to find out in front of them all who all
Yeah.
know already, right?
Yeah.
And there's been plenty of that in Perth because people do come from, particularly the fly in, fly out workers, etc.
Mm.
They often, you're like, where do you work or whatever? And they're like, Wyndham or Kalgoorlie, or there was a teacher in the show the other night who teaches 11 people in this tiny little town 2.5 hours out of, and so you don't have to pretend you know about any of it.
Mm.
You can just
Yes.
say, what's that? Where's
Yeah.
that? What's that
Yeah.
like? And
Yeah.
in explaining it to you, it is always interesting and funny.
Yeah, of
And I
course.
think people aren't also I don't think people are used to the performer both being able to be in charge, which is what you're hoping to do, still be in control of the room, not
Mm.
losing your power, but
Mm.
being able to be curious and
Mm.
like not know something, that your
Mm.
power doesn't come from you being an expert. Your
Yes.
power and control of what's going on in the room is coming from your curiosity, not necessarily from you being the higher status. Like it's this weird balance of like maintaining absolute control that everyone needs to know at all times I am in control, but that
Mm.
control can be coming from a submissive or like questioning or
Mm.
whatever like part of the. Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And the other thing, and we've discussed this many times, but everybody's funny to somebody. And so when people are telling their stories and, what you're doing is you're almost being like a prism where they can tell their stories and you can reflect it out to the audience in ways that lets everyone jump on board.
I mean, I said to the woman who was teaching these 11 kids,
Mm,
because the spectrum of ages was from 3 to 11, so
yeah,
she's got
right.
11 kids from 3 to 11 that she's trying to teach. And I said, what's the biggest challenge of that?
Mm.
And she said, 6, 7. So
Right.
she said, even in that circumstance, I'm like,
Yeah.
isn't that incredible?
Yeah.
And like, because the whole audience, of course, laughs at that because everyone in that room has had some encounter with some kid doing 6, 7.
Yeah.
And just the idea that you can get to 11 kids in the tiniest little school with like
Yeah.
this one teacher and it's
Yeah.
still fucking 6,
Six,
7.
seven. Yeah. Yeah. So good. That's great. It doesn't matter where they are. Kids are all the same. That's how many more shows do you have to go?
I got 2 weeks here. So 2 more weeks here. So
Oh,
for
it's a big run.
yeah. So that was part of the idea was to do a lot of shows in the one place because I think what I wanted to see, one of the things I wanted to add in was this sense of going and living in a place and really being able to talk about the place as
Mm,
part of the shows. So on this trip, partly because, at times I've had people to do it with, but partly it will be my attitude even when I'm by myself here, which
mm,
is to um, go and explore and do things so that my brain, you never know what it is that you're going to need in the show, but I do think having done things
mm.
and a wide variety of things, just experience things, been out and about, whatever it might be. So I have been really, it's great because then you start to go, here's my vibe about Perth right now. Here's what's
Mm,
going on in the city. I think that was part of why I was like, you know what, I'm going to go to Ed Sheeran. Not
mm,
necessarily even because I am that curious about Ed Sheeran, but because I kind of talked about it in the show on
mm.
Sunday night. And then I was like, oh, this might be a fun connection point. Like,
Yeah.
I'll go and have a look. Maybe it'll come up in the show that I went to Ed Sheeran or that what Optus Stadium is like or
Mm,
whatever else it might be that, um, I don't know. I don't know yet what the thing might be that I noticed doing that thing, but the idea of going somewhere, living in the community and being part of the experience of the place and going and
mm,
doing some of the things that are there to do, and then trying to let that be my preparation for the show for the day,
mm,
knowing that none of it may come up or may be used, or it might not be for weeks. But when it is, the amount of times I feel like already in this run that it feels like I've been living here for a week. It
mm.
feels like back when you would do a big run at a comedy festival and you'd have a whole bunch of good local material because you were there long enough that you'd really made some, it's fun. Like I really
Yeah.
enjoyed that aspect of it. And so
Yeah.
the idea of being able to settle into a place for 3 weeks and really, I want to go and see some shows. I went and saw Danielle Walker and I went and saw Lizzie who are both like in the early evolutions of what will become their touring shows. And that was so great. Like I love going to see a comedian who's, both of them are so good that
Mm,
their shows are well worth watching, even in this state. But, for
mm,
someone like me who's, will often go and see both of them at the end of their runs, knowing how brilliant they are, to see
mm,
them like do that early version of the show. I also, I really find that fascinating and
mm.
interesting and to see it at its most raw and you can go, oh yeah, I can see. Sometimes you can almost see the show even better than they can yet because they're,
Yeah.
fighting with bits of it, etc. Whereas you're just watching it go, nah, this is mostly here.
Yeah.
Like, this is, like I can see this going from the 75% done that it is now to the 95% done within days, like
Yeah.
it'll
Yeah.
just be
Yeah.
tweak this, and bang, yeah, like there sort of thing. And yeah,
Yeah, when you're in the thick of it, you can really not
yeah, can't,
know how close to the edge of
yeah.
finishing that you are.
Yeah.
That's great. Well, I'm wrapped that it's going well. I think it's speaking to having these experiences, even if they don't turn up, it's like you're chopping wood and you've got it there for fuel at some point.
Yeah. I think you just got new thoughts in there, right?
Mm,
Cleaning out the old, just trying to get rid of. For me, it's almost that thing too of I wanted to go into the new year trying not to talk about anything that I'd talked about last year.
mm.
But would I know? Because I talked about so many things. How would
Yeah,
I know
yeah,
what came up or what did not come up?
yeah.
So a much safer area to know that things are completely unique
Mm,
is to only be talking about like what is in the room with the
hmm
people who are there. And if I'm talking about anything that is not about what is in the room, it shouldn't be historical about me. It should
mm,
be about, hey, this thing happened today or last week or
yeah,
whatever. And then that way I know that it just can't be anything that I've talked about before. So I do think there is a bit of like, yes, just filling some more experiences up just so that if I do need to, talk about anything for whatever
mm.
reason, that I have some things there that are on hand.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
I should let you go so you can
Yeah,
start
this
your
is my
day
this is
proper.
my day off, so I'm gonna actually like do my laundry and stuff like
Yeah, you've got some steps to
that.
walk. Uh, can people still get tickets?
Yeah, yeah, I mean that was part of the reason we did 3 weeks. We sold the whole thing out like last year before we arrived, did
Mm,
2 weeks, and that's really lovely, of course, but it meant that no one can come and see the show again. Like part of
mm.
the trick of this show, like for people is going, is it really completely different every night? And I think this run more than ever, that is entirely true. Like you really are seeing a completely different show, often even stylistically a completely different show. And I wanted some room left in the schedule for that to happen, but I would say be quick because it is really starting to all like I mean it's yeah, every night's kind of sold out on the night so far, but like we're starting to see that it's like all really starting to just sell out well in advance now.
And do we need to push Adelaide?
And Adelaide, yes, as always. We'll need to push Adelaide when I've finished Adelaide. I'll still be trying to sell tickets to Adelaide, and then Canberra, and then Melbourne, and then Brisbane. They're all on sale still.
Comedy.com.au
Yeah.
is the best place to go and find those
Yes, please.
tickets as well. All right. Thanks, mate.
Thank you.
Thank you to Will for joining me on this latest podcast. Remember, if you're in Perth or you're going to be in the subsequent cities that have festivals, Adelaide Fringe, Melbourne Comedy Festival, etc., head to comedy.com.au and you will be able to find all the details on how you can see Will and check out his show. It sounds really exciting. It's always fun to hear. Any comedian who's really engaged with what they're doing. But Will feels almost reborn in a way. So if you haven't had one of these experiences seeing these shows, I really recommend it. As I was saying before, justinhamilton.com.au for you to sign up for the newsletter, sign up for Patreon or podcast or whatever floats your boat, the stuff that you find the most interesting. And if you think there's anyone out there that might like to join in on one of these things, feel free to uh, make a suggestion. Word of mouth is the best way these things grow these days, especially if you want to, you know, fight the algorithm. And, you know, like, is it getting to a point where I'm going to have to start putting up photos on Instagram in my underwear with lame jokes to try and sell things? That seems to be what keeps coming into my feed these days. I'll have to get a little bit more fit before I start doing something like that. But if you really don't want to see me stooping that low, word of mouth might be the best way to keep me from stooping that low. Anyway. So this Thursday, the next podcast we have an old friend of mine, Phoenix Montgomery, is going to come on. Had a really fascinating career. We hadn't seen each other for a long time. I won't say how long, but I thought it was much shorter than it really was. He's gone on to he's a performer. He's a mentalist. And he has performed all over the world. He's performed with some really interesting people, people that some big stars that you'll definitely know their names. And I feel pretty confident that you'll be absolutely across their work. But he also has an incredible story about something that he didn't experience just once, but twice. And I'm not going to tell you what it is because I think I want you to have a listen and yeah, I want to know what your reaction is. It's a fascinating story. He told me when we were having lunch, I said, "Would you come on the podcast and share that?" He said, "Absolutely." So yeah, I'm looking forward to that. That'll be on Thursday, and then next week we will get back to TV. Steve Malk will be coming back on the show. We'll be discussing how the pit is progressing. We're about 5 episodes in by the time Steve comes back on. So we'll touch base with that, but we'll also touch base with uh, other shows that are coming up. And there's one show that I have watched that I really enjoyed, and I haven't told Mulk about this yet, and I'm gonna spring it on him. So that'll be coming along next week. But this week, this Thursday, Phoenix Montgomery. All right. thank you very much for listening. Thank you for supporting everything that's being done here, not just my side of things, but what my friends are doing as well. It's been a really good reaction to season 9 and the little revamp that we've given the podcast. It seems like it's gone down well, all these new decisions and choices. So thank you to everyone who has written to me about that. And yeah, hopefully we'll have some new things to announce soon. But yeah, I'll let you go. And until then.